Well, welcome in, everybody. 70 points. 70 points. 70 points from Joel Embiid last night. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into Joe Santoliquito. I did get a chance to catch up with him yesterday. We'll hear the interview today. But I have told you all throughout this 76ers season that I am just looking at it for sheer entertainment. 82 games of a preseason schedule before we get to something that actually matters, like the playoffs. And wouldn't you know it, last night I saw it across the board from people that are in a very similar boat that I'm in. And I feel like we're all in that same boat. Anyone that has watched the Sixers over the last, over the process years to now and all that stuff, forever, basically. But with the Joel Embiid era, I'll put it as that. Anyone who has watched it over the Joel Embiid era is almost conditioned to think, all right, that's great. Let's see what you do in the playoffs. All right, that's great. Let's see what you do in the playoffs. The playoffs is all that matter. Let's get into an Eastern Conference Finals. Let's get to an NBA Finals, all that stuff. And you're conditioned to think, all right, compete for an MVP, great, but what really matters is what happens in the postseason. With all that being said, I saw, for instance, Kevin Nagandi is the first name that jumps out there, a Temple guy, Sports Center, obviously, ESPN, and he put it out there saying last night, I know everyone's just focused on the playoffs, but just enjoy what it is right now. And that is exactly where I'm at. I am just enjoying it, enjoying the ride to the postseason and being dazzled as someone who loves basketball, someone who just really loves the 76ers, and someone who loves Joel Embiid's game and all that he has become. It has been, I don't know how long since I have seen, I even was thinking about it last night. Iverson would drop 50, Iverson would drop 40, but it looked like it was hard. Iverson made it, yes, aside from the crossover and just burning people left and right and breaking their ankles, right, as they used to say, and going to the hole and all that stuff, you'd get hit hard and then go to the ground. Embiid just makes it look easy. In my lifetime, I have never watched a 76ers player that has made it look this easy. And that's what Joel Embiid, that's a perfect way to sum up Joel Embiid, I feel. I have never watched a 76ers player make the sport of basketball look this easy. And I have to think that this is what, my older relatives, my older friends, this is how they felt about watching Wilt Chamberlain. And don't get me wrong, I'm an Iverson guy. I love Allen Iverson. I went through my youth as Allen Iverson being the guy and worshiping at the altar of Allen Iverson. But it looked pretty tough. It looked pretty hard watching him do his thing, especially as many times as he hit the floor. Oh, my goodness gracious. And it's so many times hearing Mark Zumoff, amongst the trees, and one, Iverson, that kind of thing. But watching Embiid last night in particular, and maybe because he was matched up against the young man, Wembanyama, for instance, maybe watching that, I like this kid, and Victor Wembanyama looks absolutely incredible. He was a lot of fun to watch last night, but not as much fun as Joel Embiid. And he did not look like he was as much fun. He was having as much fun playing against Joel Embiid because it really was the dad strength versus the son. That's kind of what it was. Like, remember your dad just kind of had that power, that oomph, you know what I mean? And you couldn't do anything about it. It was like, man, when I'm older, I'm going to get my dad one day, that kind of thing. And I'm talking about play fighting, of course. But if you ever played basketball against your dad, played a sport against your dad, whatever, that's what it looked like. Just older brother, dad strength, whatever you want to call it. That's what it looked like to me watching Joel Embiid take on Victor Wembanyama last night. Get him down in the post, bully him to the hole, bang, 2 points right there. Shooting, he hit a three last night, took him deep, a bunch of shots from the top or from the foul line. He was all over the place. I looked at the 70-point shot chart last night, and most of it was in the paint. I think it was 21 of 24 from the foul line, which is insane. 24 of 41 from the field for 70 points on the anniversary, by the way, of Kobe Bryant's 81 points. How would you like to, by the way, just real quick, how would you like to be Karl Anthony Towns, by the way? You drop 62 points in your game last night on a night where Joel Embiid steals all the headlines and drops 70. Sixers, though, won. The Timberwolves lost. So that's a shame. But pretty remarkable night last night. One thing I do want to play for you from last night's game, which is absolutely insane, and we will get to Anthony's Joe Santoliquito with all things Jalen Hurts in a second, but I got to start with something that makes me happy, and this is certainly something that makes me happy. Joel Embiid to NBC Sports Philadelphia last night when he was told that he and Michael Jordan are the only people to put up numbers like he put up last night.
Jordan, the only NBA players to put up 65 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists in a game. What does that mean to you? You and MJ, baby.
Wilt never did this?
No, sir. Just
you and MJ. How crazy is that?
I don't believe that. Although, some of those, Wilt records, we still got to see. But I'm sure Wilt, he's done it at some point.
Nope, apparently not. And keep in mind, I know there's some people that are thinking about Wilt's 100-point game. That was as a Philadelphia Warrior, which I know a lot of people don't draw the different. They don't understand the difference. But anyway, he did 100. He had 100 points as a Warrior. Joel Embiid 70 points as a 76er. That is the new franchise record. And there you see the numbers right there. Brought to you by Bleacher Report, by the way. 70 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists in the game last night for Joel Embiid. He also, how about this? 70 points, 15 rebounds in a game. Only 3 players have done that now. Wilt Chamberlain is one of them. He just didn't have the 5 assists. And then Elgin Baylor in 1960. By the way, Wilt did it 5 times. Elgin Baylor did it once in 1960. And then Joel Embiid last night. My, oh my. What an incredible night for Joel Embiid. And one of the things that was absolutely spectacular about last night's game, aside from just watching him dominate the game, was after the game, this was pretty cool. So Alex Subers, if you know that name, if you don't know that name, he was the Sixers team photographer through the process years and up until recently. I think 2 years ago was his last season. Phenomenal photographer, went to LaSalle College High School, and good dude, met him a couple times, and took this photo last night while he was at the game. How amazing is this? For the people on the podcast, this is a photo of Furkan Korkmaz, Robert Covington, and Mr. 70 points himself, Joel Embiid, embracing San Antonio Spurs assistant coach and former head coach of the process years, Brett Brown, after the game. And they spoke for a long time. I was looking at it like, oh my God, Joel Embiid's going to be getting pulled in every direction. They're going to want him to do interviews, and he's just chopping it up with Brett Brown. And Brett Brown's just sitting there, and he's just like, Joe, you're amazing. Joe, you're amazing. That kind of, couldn't help myself, sorry. But it was absolutely spectacular to watch Joel Embiid play basketball last night. Now, I'm still with everybody. I'm still looking at this season as, I don't care if he wins the MVP award. I don't care if he has another 70-point game in terms of what it means for my overall optimism about what the team is going to do in the postseason. I am still very much in the school of the only thing that matters is what the Sixers do in the playoffs. That's the only thing that truly matters. Everything else filed under sheer entertainment. And boy, last night was I entertained. That's entertainment. One more thing from last night's game. Joel Embiid, 24 points in the first quarter, most in the first quarter by a Sixer since 1996, 1997. 24 points in the first quarter, most by a Sixer since 96, 97. Wow. And also, for the people that are rooting for the MVP award, and if you are, fine. You do you. Whatever makes you happy in life. MVP odds, at least on ESPN last night, flipped. It used to be a dead heat at plus 200 between Joker and Joel Embiid. Now, Joel Embiid is in the lead. 115, plus 115 to plus 255 for Joker. So it swung in the direction of Joel Embiid. How about that? What a night, ladies and gentlemen. What a night in South Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center. Yesterday, we did a little story. We went over a story, and that story involved the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. And a lot of people jumped to a conclusion when they saw that Joe Santoliquito wrote the piece. And ironically enough, Joe pointed out that 5 years ago to the day is the day that he dropped the Carson Wentz story. So I wanted to have Joe on because I read the story, and I feel like his colleague at Bleeding Green Nation, Brandon Lee Gouton, summed up the internet in one wonderful tweet. And he did it a couple of years ago, and I think it's still pinned on Brandon Lee Gouton's Twitter feed about how it's something along the lines of how to read an article in the 2000s, whatever. And like, step 1, read the headline, and then in parentheses, optional. Step 2, comment. Step 3, never read the story. And I feel like that really sums it up. And I don't feel like enough people really read the story, but a couple of things were very different. One, my overall takeaway, which I think is the most important thing that any Eagles fan could have from the Wentz story versus the Jalen Hurts story. I read the Wentz story and felt, oh, the Eagles are doomed. Because Carson Wentz, unlike Jalen Hurts, from my takeaway from these stories, Carson Wentz wanted everyone to conform to what he wanted. He didn't want to work on anything on his own and have that improve the team. Instead, he wanted the team to conform to him. I have the feeling after reading the Jalen Hurts story that Jalen Hurts will conform to the team, or at least try to be a little bit more open to everybody else around him. That's what I took away from the Jalen Hurts story versus the Carson Wentz story. And one of the reasons I come away with that story or with that feeling is from this line in the story that we talked about yesterday. Emphatically stated, according to numerous sources, that Hurts is not the other guy, Carson Wentz. Okay? That's the most obvious thing flashing at you from the story. The other thing here is that, according to one source, he said this about Wentz. He won't ask for help. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but from what I know about the other guy wouldn't get up at all, or he would blame someone else for why he got knocked down. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts, he is not exactly Mr. Personality, but he is someone who will get up when he's knocked down, get up stronger, and he will do it on his own. That gives me a lot more confidence in Jalen Hurts being the guy that will actually, adjust himself to help everybody else out. Whereas Carson Wentz was like, no, you guys got to do what I say. That's one thing that gave me optimism going forward with Jalen Hurts. Now, you might say, well, why is this story got to come out about Jalen Hurts' personality? Well, because everything went wrong this season. And the one thing you don't need to go wrong is the attitude of your quarterback and players on your team feeling like the guy is unapproachable, as if the guy is a little too stoic, so to speak, and is as if a guy is a prima donna. You don't want that ever. The overall takeaway, though, is this is fixable, whereas the other guy, as it's referred to, wasn't fixable, unfortunately. And the proof is in the pudding. Bleeding Green Nation later pointed out, for people that were grabbing their pitchforks to go after Joe Santoliquito again, is that Joe was right the last time. And after Carson Wentz got traded away from the Eagles, and we had already started this little program here, Joe came on the show then and talked about, well, yep, this is pretty. Everyone wanted my throat a couple of months ago, and here we are. The Eagles wanted nothing to do with him after signing him to that mega huge Kajunga deal. I don't think this has the same ending. I think this has a much happier ending than what we saw from the Carson Wentz story. Another thing that is interesting from yesterday, and this has nothing to do with Joe's story, but our own friend Derek Gunn talked to some sources about the future of Brian Johnson. As we talked about yesterday, Matt Patricia, no longer here. Sean Desai, no longer here. Apparently that's at the will of the head coach, surprisingly, and Nick Sirianni. Don't necessarily believe it, but that's the story. The other part of it is from what Derek Gunn put out there yesterday, which is that Brian Johnson does not appear to be making a return to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Philadelphia Eagles announced yesterday that both Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni will be addressing the media tomorrow, Wednesday, and talk about all that's going on in this Eagles offseason, which will be a very busy Eagles offseason. Another name that has come out, and by the way, just for those that need it really spelled out, Nick Sirianni's back. You're not having this guy, come in and make an offseason plan. You're not sitting down with him if you're Jeffrey Lurie and then walking away from that sit down, that meeting going, maybe he's still fired, maybe he's not, but go and do a press conference. He's back. He's back. And Jeff McClain pointed out yesterday what I even mentioned is you're not having him do all this and then firing him. And also, you're not having a press conference if you're Jeffrey Lurie to announce the coach under contract is still under contract. The coach under contract is still your coach. You're not making that announcement. Because then that does a couple of things. Most notably, what it does is tell everyone else that, yeah, we understand that he was on the hot seat. We thought about it. And when I was yacht shopping in St. Martin, I thought, maybe this guy, I don't know if I should have him back or not. Yeah, you weren't going down that avenue. So the Eagles are just having him do a press conference. Hey, Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, they're going to sit down tomorrow, Wednesday, at the NovaCare Complex and answer, I'm sure, a lot of questions. And I'm going to set the over-under on that press conference being, I'm going to go 34 minutes. That's what I'm going to set it at. It's going to be a long one. Going to be a bit of a doozy for an end-of-the-season press conference with two people. Good time. The funny thing is, I looked at these end-of-the-season press conferences all the time, especially when they were Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. And Nick would very rarely get questions. Howie would get the question. Like, Nick, you talk to all year. Howie is in a limited capacity. Jeffrey Lurie, even more limited, maybe once a year, twice a year if there's a big thing going on there, like a new head coach or a quarterback contract, whatever the case may be. So I found that interesting. But I would always look at Howie as the guy with the power. And although I still think he's got more power than Nick Sirianni, the more I look at this organization, the more I just look at this as Jeffrey Lurie's organization. And he's the owner. No, of course. Yeah, he's the owner. But I never looked at him as much of a meddling owner as he is now. And that's how I see Jeffrey Lurie. That's one of the things I get into with Joe Santoliquito as well, is when he looks at this franchise from afar, with all the sources that he has tapped into and all the people that he has talked to, and I know a couple of them, what's the overall takeaway of the franchise? Not just the quarterback situation, but what's the overall takeaway of the franchise and how the Eagles are run? What's the pecking order? What's the hierarchy? What's the distribution of decision-making amongst the Philadelphia Eagles? It's another thing we get into. So, yeah, we get into all that on the program today. Ron Rivera. It's almost too easy. It's almost too easy. If the Eagles are truly going to move on from Brian Johnson, as well as their defensive coordinators that they had this season, and Nick Sirianni is really the only guy back, that would mean that Nick Sirianni going into next year, if somehow, some way, the struggles of this year, the end of the season, carry into the beginning of next season, and somehow the Philadelphia Eagles start out at 1-5 or 2-6 or whatever they might start out at, they start as a very bad record. The Eagles, as I said yesterday, are going to want somebody to come in, maybe from the defensive side of the ball, and the template is already there from Jim Schwartz and Doug Peterson, where if Doug doesn't work out, Jim Schwartz can just slide right on over and be the head coach. Well, if you do hire Ron Rivera, which would make sense for this hypothesis, then that means if Nick Sirianni does start out on a horrible record, you could just have Ron Rivera slide over and be your next head coach. The template is already there, and the template even started before that. The template started. You know where it started? It started. No, not Andy Reid, not Ray Rhodes. The template started when the Eagles hired Pat Shurmur to be under Chip Kelly. If Chip Kelly's offense didn't work, Pat Shurmur just slide right over. And not necessarily be the head coach, but he would be the West Coast style West Coast offensive coordinator, and he would call plays. I remember everyone at the time, it was like we would look at either Frank Reich or we would look at Press Taylor, whoever it might be. Press Taylor, I think, just stayed as quarterback coach, never coordinator, but at least with the Eagles. But it would be a little bit like those situations where, no, they weren't there necessarily to call plays, but they were there in case of emergency, break glass. And that's what Pat Shurmur was under Chip Kelly for an offensive perspective. That's what Jim Schwartz was to Doug Peterson as a head coaching, from a head coaching perspective. And that could be what Ron Rivera ends up being from a head coaching perspective as well. where you can hire him as your defensive coordinator. There's familiarity there. He was a linebackers coach there under Andy Reid. And then all of a sudden, he could take over now for Nick Sirianni if things go, bottoms up, if things go up terrible starting out next year. The Eagles like to have their contingency plans. Look no further than Matt Patricia for Sean Desai. Although it didn't work, they still had him right there. The other name that's interesting is Jim Bob Cooter. I remember Jim Bob Cooter for two things. One, he was the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions when they absolutely pantsed the Eagles on Thanksgiving, I believe it was. I remember watching that game at a bar in Green Bay, Wisconsin, going, this is pretty terrible. And Jim Bob Cooter he really took it to the Eagles in that one. And then recently, Jim Bob Cooter, I believe it was 3 seasons ago in Nick Sirianni's first year with the Eagles, was the, I want to say, passing game coordinator or offensive consultant for the Philadelphia Eagles. It was one of those type titles. So all these names are in play with the Birds. Wink Martindale still in play as well, but a lot of names in play for the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So to go back to Derek Gunn's report, Brian Johnson, things are leaning in the direction of Brian Johnson not returning to the Eagles, which would be a little bit surprising after Jalen Hurts came out after the season and said Nick Sirianni, and Brian Johnson, he wants to fix it. He wants to fix this Eagles offense with those two key cogs in the offensive wheel for the Philadelphia Eagles. Good times. Fun times being an Eagle fan. Fun times. Before I get to my friend Anthony or Joe Santoliquito, I don't know why I keep calling Anthony. Joe Santoliquito, let me tell you about the great people at the Game Time app. Want to go to a game? Need tickets? Game Time app. Use promo code Farzy when you create an account at the Game Time app, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app to your phone. Use promo code Farzy when you create an account. You get $20 off that first purchase. You can also preview the seats before you go to the game. Before you buy the tickets, you can see the vantage point at the venue. So there's no surprises. Not sitting behind a pole, not sitting in a corner, not sitting behind the stage. You got a good seat. You can do that at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app to your phone and also take part in the Game Time guarantee, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what's that? That means if you find tickets in the same section and same row for less money, they will get you back for 110% of the difference. That is the Game Time guarantee. Last-minute ticket deals, flash ticket deals, even ticket deals for an hour after the event starts. So you'll miss the opening act. No big deal. Ultimate savings at the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app to your phone. Use promo code Farzy and get $20 off your first purchase. All right, without further ado, so here is the story. I'll flash it up one more time here. Joe Santoliquito of Bleeding Green Nation put out this story regarding Jalen Hurts. And I said, okay, I know some people need context. And what I was getting to yesterday, some people jumped to the conclusion that Joe's just slinging mud or doesn't like Eagle quarterbacks for whatever reason. Not the case. Excuse me. Joe absolutely got after it when it came to investigating, talking to sources, and then putting the story out there that brings everybody else in to behind the scenes at the NovaCare complex to what this Eagles team thinks about Jalen Hurts and why there's optimism that this is not the same case as we saw from almost exactly 5 years ago with Carson Wentz. So Joe Santoliquito joins us on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. Oh, you got the Red Sox hat on there, Joe. For the people on the podcast, Joe has chosen to wear a Red Sox cap on the broadcast day. What's going on there, Joe?
Yo, what's up, Mark? How are you?
Busy couple of 24 hours or so?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. It seems like I'm like Puxatawny Joe. Like every 5 years, I wear my ugly Eagles hat. In this case, I have this. Dude, I just love the hat. I'm not a Red Sox fan. You of all people know I'm an Orioles guy / Phillies guy. But I love the old school. I mean, Freddie Lynn, Jim Rice, the whole bit. So, but yeah, and then I got okay.
You got your Bama hoodie on as well.
Yeah, that I do like. I love Saban, and I know a bunch of people that.
While we're on the subject, as a sports fan, one of I think the greatest hat ever in sports is the Brooklyn Dodgers blue hat with the same B on it, whatever. Yeah. And people are always like, "Oh, Red Sox fan," and I'm like, "Do you not even know your history?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Joe, yeah, every 5 years, you come out, you have a story about a supposed franchise quarterback. This one it questions the leadership capabilities of one Jalen Hurts. Now, I will say, as I pointed out on the show yesterday, you say in all but bright, shining, flashing lights, he is not Carson Wentz. So you knew people were going to kind of jump to that conclusion. This story, it goes in a different direction. You break down a couple of things. Jalen Hurts' ability to break down or get away from the blitz, the coaching staff's ability to help him get away from the blitz and beat the blitz. You also talk about defensive coordinator positions, and you also once again say that although leadership qualities are being questioned from inside the locker room, from inside the NovaCare complex, bright flashing letters, he is not Carson Wentz.
No, and the other thing that needs to be stated is he could be a better leader. Again, I can't stress that enough. It's there in the story. I wrote it, my words from numerous people in there. Not saying he's not a leader. He could be a better leader. And people feel he's going to be a better leader. Hurts himself came out and said, hey, listen, this is a growing year. This was a year I think he came in handicapped to begin with. I spoke about the directions and the different directions he was pulled in after signing that big deal. I understand it. He had to cash in. But I'll word it this way to you and to your audience. I'll say someone within the Hurts circle, very prominent role within the Hurts circle, told me Jalen's about football. Jalen's about, busting his tail, working out in Texas heat, throwing the ball. The commercial stuff and the brand building and all that business, that's not him. But I understand it. I see it. I see where he's coming from. So he's pulled in different directions. That I think sunk into his time in terms of how much he prepared. And this guy's a workaholic. Never said he didn't have a work ethic. Never said he wasn't a workaholic. What I did say was his time was thinned out last offseason. And he's never satisfied to begin with. So going into a season, he thinks he has to do that much more work. This is going to be boring now. If we suddenly don't hear it, I'll be surprised if we don't hear it. That he's going to have to get that left knee cleaned out. Something's happened, some type of minor exploratory surgery to get him right again physically. And then he's got to hit it, and he's got to hit it hard, and he's got to work. This guy's accountable. It's in the story. I mean, the other guy, our buddy, Carson Wentz, tendency to maybe get knocked down. He might point a finger at someone else. He might turn around and divert accountability. It's not Jalen Hurts. That's not who he is. That's in there. That's written in the story. Again, some of the I'll stop here because I don't want to get myself in trouble, and I'll turn around and piss off any more of the fan base than I already have. But I will say this, and again, which is frightening, really frightening, is so I'm known for the Wentz story. All right. That comes out on Monday, January 21st, 2019. This is posted 5 years to the day. I didn't even know until like 2 hours ago when you and I are talking. We're talking here on Monday, but the story is posted Sunday, January 21st, 2024. And here, if you remember, and you all people would know, the first person I spoke to that Monday morning when that story the Wentz story went out was you. So here, lo and behold, 5 years later, who's the first person? I've gotten a lot of interview requests. I know I've pissed off maybe some people. I don't care. But you and I obviously have a relationship. There's a trust factor here between us. So, yeah, and I'm only doing a couple of these. So I learned my lesson from the last time. And I'm a media person, yet I got a lesson. And you and I spoke about this. I got a lesson in media the last time, and it's a mistake I'm not going to make again.
I'll put it to you like this. So people have brought the story you did on me to my attention. Like, I remember when we first talked about the Wentz story, people were like, oh, you guys ever he wrote a story about you, so you're just, in his pocket or whatever. And I'm like, hold on. The reason I give so much credibility to that Wentz story is because I've been the subject of a Joe Santoliquito story. I know the digging you do. So that's why I have the respect.
Can I say ass? You know how much a pain in the ass I am.
I know what a pain in the ass you are. Yes, I do, Joe.
So, and with this was, I'm proud of the Wentz stuff, proud of the Philly voice stuff, but this was, you read it, Mark. You read the both of them.
Yeah. This is far different.
Yeah, this is far different. This is far more thorough. This is far more thorough than the first one story. The second one story, if you remember, was very thorough too. That was multi-layered. That was multi-layered, and that was more balanced. This is more thorough. This is multi-layered, and I'm being accused of tearing down Jalen Hurts and this and that. But if you read the freaking story, it's in there. Right. I mean, the guy is. I mean, there's people saying, "Hey, yeah, he is a good guy." You have to get to learn about him. You have to get to know him. I've been with him twice, and they've been very, very good experiences. But when it starts to come back to you from 5, 6, 7 different people who don't know each other and are telling similar stories about this guy, maybe it's a little bright lights, big city, and maybe he has to be pulled down to earth a little bit, which I think is just the case in this story. And he gets himself back together again. Like the Wentz story, there were folks there that were like, and that was aimed at him. This is more team-wise. And I will say this too: if I had a one-on-one with Jalen Hurts and he was there, he would be with the three of us. I think Jalen Hurts himself would admit, yeah, I should have been and could have been a better leader next year. I should have been better next year.
And as you pointed out already, he said that when they broke down the locker room, before everyone left for the offseason, unfortunately. But one thing I do want to get into, a couple of things, and you mentioned it already, but I want to make sure we get to this as well. And then I want to get, if you could provide any more context, great. But this is one of the excerpts from the story that we read on the show yesterday. One source on the team described Hurts as a, quote, good dude, as you just pointed out, Joe, who sometimes does not realize the times he's acting like a prima donna expletive. You used the word jerk. Multiple sources close to him, and inside the Eagles confirmed this. Teammates wanted to include him in functions. Hurts would wave them off. He has been described as detached, stoic, isolated, and unapproachable. Yeah,
which is really no great revelation. It really isn't. I mean, I think we know quite a bit of those things about him. And that's his doing. And it's kind of a shame. I mean, there were guys that wanted him to be part of things. Where Carson Wentz was socially awkward, I think we can agree with that. I don't think Hurts is socially awkward. I think there are walls that he puts up there. First off, the walls were kind of like mid-range last year. Now, with the money, now with some of the acclaim, again, like I said, bright lights, big city, those walls are even higher. Those walls are even higher, which, again, I understand. It's understandable. He has different people coming at him in different directions. That, again, there is he has a guarded way about him. But I understand, with a new world, a world that's opening up even more to him, I can understand the distrust, the mistrust that he may have. What I don't understand, and through time, hopefully, again, this changes, he's going to need to be more authoritative in that locker room. He's going to have to be the hammer that comes down. He's going to have to be the one that's not afraid to get on someone's face and say blankety blank, blank, blank. I know someone very, very well who played exceptionally well, who played for the New England Patriots when Tom Brady was there. And he caught passes from Tom Brady. He caught touchdown passes from Tom Brady. He caught touchdown passes in the Super Bowl from Tom Brady. And he says to me, you didn't like being dressed down by Tom, but you knew 99.9% of the time Tom was right. And then it came to a point where, you know what, you got to perform for this guy. You want to, he's throwing faith and trust in you. He's the great Tom Brady. And obviously he has rings and all that stuff. Jalen hopefully will get his time and build that cachet in terms of winning on the field, which I think he's done a very good job of to begin with. The only thing missing are the rings. But you wanted to play for Brady. Brady took something and made you something more than what you thought you would be. It's almost like being in the Marine Corps when you go in, you're fat and chubby and everything else like that. Next thing you know, the drill sergeant's on your tail, and you are more than what you thought you could be. And that's why Brady got what he was able to get out of the limited guys that he was around. I mean, Wes Welker. I actually personally like who's my little buddy, Edelman, Julian Edelman, who I think is actually a very good receiver. But Brady also made a lot of these guys. What I'd like to see more of from Jalen Hurts is making guys around him better.
Certainly.
I got to ask. That's another question that needs to be asked. This team was flat. The dynamic on this team is not Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. The dynamic on this team is A.J. Brown. Look how flat they looked against Tampa Bay. I mean, they just – well, first off, I hate to say this, and I say this cringing. I think they all kind of quit anyway. But
That's
they
what
are
it looked like.
Yeah, they are a different team when A.J. Brown plays. And that's just a stone cold fact. I mean, he adds a dynamic to that team that they simply don't have. It's the same. Obviously, it's the same thing as T.O. effect. The T.O. effect had on the 2004 Eagles that drove to the Super Bowl. So those two are buddies. They're close. And I understand when A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts says that's family. When those two were up each other's tails, it would be like, I mean, think about this just in daily life. Who are your most heated arguments with? You know, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, family members. You know, there's you want to kill them, they want to kill you. You can turn around and be crazy with each other like that. So
because it's from love. It's a place of love.
And I see that, and I understand that relationship there. But as someone also told me, listen, if this guy's shutting himself off from us off the field, how the hell do you think we're going to turn around and try to communicate, connect with this guy on the field?
Right.
Which, kind of blurted something out there, but that's something that was told to me that I didn't have in the story. But that's, I think, but I think, Mark, that's a very, very valid point.
Well, you mentioned people on the team, and to your Tom Brady point, Tom Brady still has stories about him chugging beers with his offensive linemen. So, there's a human element. There's a human element to it.
Exactly. He had that connection. He's a guy, again, you want to play for. A guy, again, that was able to connect. And the individual, again, like I said, that Brady knew everybody from the first guy to the 52nd guy on this Patriots team. He knew everybody from the first guy to the 52nd guy on the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay team. I'd like to think Jalen Hurts does, but I could say this kind of firmly. I don't think he does. I think Jalen Hurts is capable of doing that. And we had this discussion, again, it's scary, 5 years ago about a particular someone, that Jalen Hurts is capable of doing so much more than what he's doing now. And the only person that's holding Jalen Hurts back is Jalen Hurts.
I want to explore that a little bit more. I have one more excerpt from your story, though. Again, this is where you highlight the idea. Yeah, this is where you highlight the idea that that Hurts is not Carson Wentz. The person you spoke to said emphatically they are not. He is not Carson Wentz. He's not the other guy. He's not Carson Wentz. He's not exactly, quote, Mr. Personality, but he is someone who will get up when he is knocked down. He will get up stronger, and he will do it on his own, according to one source. Hurts also is looked at as a guy that he won't ask for help. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. From what I know of the other guy, meaning Carson Wentz, he wouldn't get up or blame someone else as to why he got knocked down. So I'll ask you this. From the people you spoke to, the last time with Carson Wentz and what that story turned into compared to now, what was your feeling about Carson Wentz and the future of the Eagles versus your feeling about Jalen Hurts and the future of the Eagles right now?
I thought Carson had to change what he had to change and change it quickly. This guy here, but the twist of it too was Carson again, and we know this, you know this. They threw a lot of power into Carson's hands early on.
Mm-hmm.
They did. They learned the lesson with that. We know that. They're not going to make that mistake again. There's no Tom Brady-esque guy there now. Again, if Jalen Hurts turns into a Tom Brady-esque player, I hope he does. But right now, this is a guy that's kind of have to incrementally get to a certain level. I think.
Let me rephrase. Let me rephrase for a second. Let me rephrase the question. I can only speak for myself. When I read the Carson Wentz story, my thought was we're doomed. When I read the Jalen Hurts story, my feeling is there's a lot to improve upon. Not that we're doomed. Is that a fair takeaway from?
That's right on point. That is right on point. You probably got an A+ in reading comprehension, far better than a lot of people in the Philadelphia area right now that heard about this story. I certainly don't think a number of people will say on social media may have read it, considering some of the backlash. But the backlash, I will also say, is nowhere near as crazy as it was crazy 5 years ago. 5 years ago to the day, I didn't even know. Like I said, which is nuts. But yeah, there's a lot that he can improve on. There's a lot there. The big word was accountability. That the other guy can get up. Remember this: he can get up on his own. He's not going to turn around and blame anybody else. Now,
Jalen Hurts isn't going to blame.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. The interesting part of that quote was this. He's not going to ask for help, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think Jalen needs to ask for more help. I think now I see it. I think there was a report that came out. I don't know if it was today or last night, in reference to Jalen Hurts cutting off Brian Johnson. Was it in terms of making some audibles?
Late last week, Ralph Vacchiano of Fox Sports put the story out there.
Yeah, making some calls on his own, things like that. That's a situation where, guys, I'm not getting it. I need more help. And they didn't help him, by the way, which is also in the story. They did not help that. They did not help Jalen Hurts. The coaching staff did not help him, especially when it came to the blitz, running the verticals down the field, not turning around, not cutting off routes. These things weren't built into an offense. How do you not build that into an offense? I covered football from every level. And we'll just say just high school football level. You got a blitzer from the defensive end. You have someone over here. You have a wide receiver in the slot. Fill that void. Where that DN leaves, fill that opening, fill that void. If someone's going to take the chance and open it and blitz like that, that's an open area. Go to the area. Bang. He wants to leave that area open. We'll take advantage of the open area. Football 101. And I'm a dunce. All right. But I know enough football. But I know enough football to know that, and I know enough football to ask other people who know far more than me. What do you do there in that situation? And think about this. What happened in the season opener? They give up. I had it in the story. They gave up whatever.
316, I think, to Mac Jones.
Yeah, something crazy. 3 touchdowns to Mac Jones. They wind up winning. The offense sputters. I think the offense scored 1 touchdown. They scored 1 touchdown. I think they had a long in the opener, right? And they scored. Yeah, they scored 1 touchdown, which came, by the way, off a turnover. And here, this is interesting, which I noted in the story. And again, this is a summation of the season, not Jalen Hurts centric, but it's a summation of the season. I think with 3-something left in the third quarter, you see Jake Elliott going like this because they don't have the right personnel in the field. And that was the season opener. Think about this in the playoff loss to Tampa Bay. Was it Eli Ricks? There was a personnel situation there. You are that deep, and they had situations like that all season long. I go back to Julio Jones in the Arizona game, where he's there standing on the sideline like, what am I doing? What do you want me? What am I supposed to do? And they finally take him off the field, and Jock Stoll runs off. Okay? That is, again, that should have been handled before the first regular season game. And this is interesting, too. Mark, you know this because, again, you were around it. I'm not one of those people that say Sirianni should be fired. I think he deserves another year, at least. I also will go as far as saying this. I think he did more coaching behind the scenes than he's willing to admit. I think there was a number of situations where he was coaching the coaches. Again, we saw that a blatant example during training camp, where Desai didn't have the right personnel in the field. It was Sirianni had to come across the field, take the time away from what he's doing, to turn around and coach someone else, coach one of his coaches. And I'll word it this way, a very, very strong impression. He did that pretty often last season. So he's juggling a lot of balls in the air, along with what his responsibilities are. So that's a big, hefty plate. Last time I looked, Nick Sirianni only has 2 hands. He may think he has 8, but he only has 2. So I'm willing to turn around and give Nick Sirianni the benefit of the doubt and give him another year. This is his ship. He is the master and commander. He's the leader. He should be on these guys' tails as to who should have been on the field, who wasn't on. How simple that is. The other thing, too, is their tempo. I had a stat. I didn't exactly use it for the story, but their tempo, getting in and out of the huddle, calling plays, was off. Was off by, I think, like 1.2 seconds, 2 seconds. But how small that may sound to you and I. 2 seconds, 2.3 seconds in and out of the huddle. And in NFL, where things are moving that quickly and every second literally counts, that's huge. That's gigantic. So how they got in and out of the huddle, how they moved with tempo under Steichen was far, far different on how they moved under Brian Johnson. And it goes back to coaching. It goes back to what these guys were told. And I think by the end of the year, I'll just word it this way, through very valuable sources, there was a lot of disgust in that locker room. There was a lot of disgust with how things went. this is a team that did expect to get to the Super Bowl. This is a city that expected them to get there. Again, you read the story. It was a failure from top to bottom, a failure from obviously Lurie and Roseman, a failure from Sirianni, a failure from the coaching staff, certainly a failure from the players is what I wrote. But also, Mark, it was a failure in a sense too of us so-called watchdog media. I mean, we did not turn around and see the defections or take into account the number of defections on the defensive side, and that the Eagles were working off of 2 new coordinators. Now, granted, again, they ran up was a 10-1, and suddenly the wheels began starting to get a little bit loose. And I remember, again, I would constantly do our good, bad, and ugly that I do for Bleeding Green Nation. And I would say, this is the best 7-1 team. This is the worst 7-1 team in football. This is the worst 8-1 team in football. This is the worst 10-1 team in football. And I get feedback. I get pushback. Oh, but we still won. Oh, but we still won. Oh, look at our record. We are what our record is. No, you're not. And believe me, dude, I'm in the sport of boxing, and I know you can have a 10 or 20-0 fighter who has beat a bunch of cream puffs, and tomato cans to get there. And the Eagles didn't exactly beat cream puffs and tomato cans to get to 10-1, but there were a lot of signs there and a lot of cracks in the wall that say, hey, listen, this is coming apart. And when the dam burst, it burst.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I think put the biggest hole in the wall, though, was making the switch to Matt Patricia. From people that you spoke to, and the Eagles making the decision to go from Desai to Patricia, I didn't think Desai was necessarily doing a great job by any means, but it seems like you really compounded the problem by making that switch late in the year.
Yeah, and it's a panic move. It's a panic move that lights up the whole locker room. Suddenly, you're looking around, what the hell is going on here? And again, people think, football, you put on the helmet, you go out and tackle. It's a very, very technical game. It's a system game. It's a matter of you're learning. They had to learn. I understand they had to learn some new vernacular. They were placed in spots. Some of these guys were. Now, I don't place a whole lot of credence into Son Reddick backing up or whatever. I mean, every once in a while, I think Buddy Ryan had Clyde Simmons back up, or turn around and fall off in the coverage. We saw it, with Brandon Graham, in Chip Kelly's rookie year. Even though, well, obviously we know that was a wrong move. We know where Brandon fit. But I don't put a whole lot of credence into stuff like that as much as I do guys learning where to be that late in the season, where that should have been instituted at the beginning of the year, which it was, and now you're asking guys to change up. You're asking guys to change the routine. The NFL is very much about routine. The NFL is very much about, these guys run, as you know, they run the same stuff, defensively, offensively. It's a matter of how well they disguise these things. And it came to a point in time where the Eagles weren't able to disguise anything, whether it be offensive or defensive. And then you're placing the players in the unenviable situation of learning new vernacular right here, 3/4 of the way into the season. And, you're still trying to kind of, in a way, grasp what Desai's doing. I thought Desai did an okay job. I would have, on a scale of I would give him a grade of C. I'm not saying he's an E or an F effort. Well, the effort was there. I'm not going to question Sean Desai's effort. But I would give him a grade of C. I think Sean Desai deserved possibly another year. Because the other thing, too, is for having them fall apart against San Francisco, having them fall apart against Dallas, they played pretty well against Miami. He came up with a really good team.
Eli Ricks played phenomenal in that game.
They played very well against Kansas City. They played very well in the third game of the year, which was against Tampa Bay. They held Tampa Bay to 11 points as opposed to 39 in the playoff loss. So it reached a point in time where you're dealing with inferior talent. Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham they'd be special teams players on the Cowboys or 49ers, which again, is something I wrote. And I think, again, that's very valid. Reed Blankenship, I think, is a decent player. Do you remember Justin Evans? Does anyone remember Justin Evans?
I remember he was here for a second.
He was one of your 2 starting safeties. And then suddenly he disappears. He goes poof off into the woodwork. Where the hell is it? Where's he? And now suddenly, and now they're picking up Shaq Leonard. The stopgap has to change. The stopgap has to stop. Howie Roseman's stopgap philosophy has to stop. And we saw that. We saw that with their stopgap measures, because you're not going to win with stopgap players. They got a deal with CJ DJ. Help me out here.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, yeah.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's now with the Detroit Lions. Very, very good player. Obviously, we know how much of a pain in the ass he was in the locker room. That's why he's no longer here. TJ Edwards was a very good linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
I understand how they lost TJ. I believe the Eagles maybe even offered him more money, but TJ wanted to stay in Chicago. He's from Chicago.
One report I saw was that the Eagles were not willing to match.
Mark,
or even come close.
But he finished the season among the top 10 tacklers. And he was a major part of that defense. Javon Hargrave pushed that pocket back. He bent that pocket. So here you're dealing with the heart, literally the guts of your defense. You're dealing with Jazir White, who kind of fell off the tail end of the last season, but two very impactful linebackers. They were still impactful linebackers, White and Edwards. So you're dealing with Hargrave there at D tackle. You're dealing with your two primary linebackers in Hargrave and in White. And you're dealing with the loss of Epps and CJ DJ. So that's five major contributors to a defense that had 70 sacks last season. Oof. And that was a very, very impactful defense. If there is one, we'll spin this back in reference to Jalen Hurts. If there's one major contributor that I would have from the Eagles and on the Eagles fans, is I still don't know if they know who he is. Is he Mahomes, or is he? I was going to say, is he Jared Goff? I think a lot of people would like to be Jared Goff right now, or is he Kirk Cousins? I mean, is he someone who's going to win you games and able? Is he someone that's going to be able to win you games on his own? And right now, as we're talking here on January 22nd, 2024, that is one thing I do question. Mm. You know, I'm not going to question this guy's ability. He's obviously a winner. He's proven that he can win. But can he take limited talent and go above and beyond with that limited talent? And that is the impression, and that's the mistake I hope the Eagles still don't make, because we saw again his whole game changed last year when A.J. Brown came to town, and we saw what he's able to do with A.J. Brown in the lineup. I know they had that tailspin at the end of last season when A.J. was on the field, but they are a different team. They are an explosive team. They are a dangerous offensive team with A.J. Brown as part of that component, and they are simply an adequate, bordering on maybe even below average offense without him. And that's what Jalen Hurts is, your quarterback. They have some things. They have some things that they need to sort out. It's the NFL. It's quick, but they also have to think philosophically what they want to do. They never invested in running backs in the past. They never invested in linebackers in the past. They never invested in safeties. Maybe that's a philosophical change that's going to have to take place.
I hope so, Joe. I hope so. But let me ask this real quick. Here's what I think I've learned, especially from this season. I think really good quarterbacks can overcome a lack of talent. What I don't think they can overcome is horrible coaching. And I don't think this team, even if Nick Sirianni was a great head coach, which he wasn't this year, but if he was a great head coach, he's got to overcome coordinators and play callers. And if that guy's not getting the job done as a play caller offensively, you got to take over that responsibility as much as you don't want to. And I can look at Shane Steichen over the last 2 years. If I'm Nick Sirianni, and be like, well, yeah, he's definitely not going to replace Shane Steichen as a play caller, because Shane Steichen is a damn good play caller. Brian Johnson never made me feel like a good play caller. And I guess Jalen Hurts didn't feel confident in him as a play caller either, if he's calling his own plays so many times.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Seattle play,
sure,
in the end is the glaring example of that. I'll kind of hint at this a little bit. I think that's a relationship that, we dealt with that before when a particular number 11 had a tendency to look at a particular number 86. All right? If you know what I'm hitting at here. Yeah. And
Zach Ertz, Carson Wentz, of course.
Guys are like, hey, listen, dude, spread the wealth, man. Mm-hmm. I like to believe Jalen Hurts believes in everybody else as well as he does believe in A.J. Brown. I do know for a fact he has, certainly, if I were Jalen Hurts, I'd certainly believe more and trust more in AJ Brown than I would the other players, but he's going to need to look at others and play and see others again in the future. They spread the ball around pretty well going to 2022. Think about this. We're talking about 2022 as if it was like 10 years ago. And it was only 2 years ago when technically it's going to be a year ago since they went this time last year. They were playing in the NFC Championship, to go to the Super Bowl. And at the end of the year, Mark, arguably, they may have been the worst team in football. I mean, think about it. They may have been the worst team. Look at who they lost to.
Don't make me do it again. I've done it enough already.
And I'll say this. I just spoke to a former major coach former major coach from a rival team will say he just thought they flat out quit against them. They just flat out quit. And I would not like to believe that, but this person certainly knows more than I know. And he's telling me, I'm telling you, Joe, they flat out quit. and by all shapes and sizes and looks in that game, they did.
I said at the time they played like a team that was begging to get their coach fired. That's if you wanted to get him fired, that's how you play. And it was listless is what it was.
Well, I tell you this, they're going to have to live with each other because I was with Hurts twice personally. I was with Hurts and Sirianni together, and they seem to have a good relationship with each other. And in the setting, I was with them, the social setting, they were cool. Everything was fine. I think they're going to have a heart-to-heart. Hurts, hey coach, this is what's on my mind, whatever. Sirianni, and I think, by the way, knowing the two of them, or at least what we know of the two of them, I think that's a conversation that's going to take place if it hasn't taken place already.
Fair enough.
If Jalen Hurts is going to talk to someone, he doesn't owe his teammates really anything, even though it kind of helped. But he owes that to Nick Sirianni, and Nick Sirianni owes that to Jalen Hurts. I mean, they're not going to go. They can't go forward without each other. And I think I don't think we all know they know that.
Gotcha. The last thing for you here. From all your conversations over the years, most recently here with the Carson Wentz era, now the Jalen Hurts era, and Nick Sirianni and Doug Peterson, all that. What is the best way you could sum up, Joe, to a complete stranger, a football fan, but a complete stranger? How are the Eagles run? Is there heavy influence from Jeffrey Lurie? Is it mostly Howie Roseman? Does Nick Sirianni really get to be the real head coach, the boss man on the field? How would you break down the Eagles are run?
You want a word? I'll give you a word. The puppet masters.
Oh, geez. That's my worst fear. That's my worst fear.
I mean, what
you're not telling me anything. I'm not surprised. That's exactly what we all think. But you've had conversations with far more people than I have. Our fear is the puppet master.
Yeah, it's in the story. Do you think Desai was demoted through Nick, or do you think Desai was demoted through Howie and Mr. Lurie getting on Nick about demoting him? Well, what, in your opinion, happened there?
My opinion is that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman said, you guys are making a move at the defensive coordinator position. And Nick said, you got it.
And I believe the same. And I believe the same because, again, it's in the story. People that know Nick was just, they were over here saying, hey, listen, that doesn't seem like Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni is very much a coach's coach. There's people in the league that aren't crazy about his histrionics, which I think, by the way, I feel very strongly that'll change next year. I think he's going to put a lid on some of that business. I think he's going to be a little bit more serious-minded next year, but he is also going to have to be more serious-minded because I'll tell you what, Mark, if they continue going and dragging the way they are and the way they finished, they start 1-6 next year, 1-7. He's gone. He may be gone mid-season. And Howie Roseman is a great general manager. He's perceptive. Jeff Lurie has his pulse on his team. He knows what's going on. And right now they are willing, because of what Nick Sirianni has done in his first 3 years. They're willing to turn around, extend him another year. But if this team keeps on sinking the way it is, they will pull the plug. They'll pull the plug next season. They'll pull the plug during the season to get it all wiped away and to start clearing the path for another coach. I hope it doesn't lead to that. I hope they get themselves right. But it's also, as we're talking, this time last year they're going to the Super Bowl, this and that. They're going to be a 12 or 13 win season team in 2023. Now, as we're talking, what would you put the over under with the Eagles right now
For next year?
for next year
They have
or this
20.
coming season?
They have 20 some big time players that they have to resign. It's very difficult right now. I'll say this. I still have confidence in Jalen Hurts. And as I said earlier, I don't feel like this is all doomed now by any means. I still think A.J. Brown's back. Devontae Smith's obviously back. They're going to get a running back. I think I'm starting to shade a little bit more towards Jason Kelce possibly coming back for another year.
I think very strongly that could happen.
Oh, what do you know? What do you know, Joe Santoliquito?
I'll just say this.
Hmm.
I think Jason Kelce would like to go out the way he wants to go out. I think if he does come back, I'm going to say 80% he comes back, 20% he doesn't. And I'm going to say 80% he comes back because I think he wants to leave on his terms.
All
and
right.
I think he does. If Jason Kelce does return, which I think now he will, I think we can. I like and respect Adam Schefter, but I think we can thank Adam Schefter for that.
Despite Schefter, he comes back.
I think Adam Schefter stole his thunder.
Oh, hey,
You know what?
if Adam Schefter stealing,
I'm going to prove you guys wrong. I'm coming back.
if
I'm
Adam
coming back.
Schefter stealing the thunder of Jason Kelce gives us one more year of Jason Kelce, I love Adam Schefter. I love him and his thievery.
Yeah. But I mean, knowing Kels, could you see Kels doing that? Like,
Yes.
you, I'm gonna,
Yes,
this is what you did. You stole my thunder. I'm coming back.
1,000%.
No.
But by the way, as far as Nick Sirianni goes,
Yeah.
There's the talk now about the Eagles sitting down with Ron Rivera. So my thought, and you can tell me what you think of this hypothesis, the Eagles are going to bring in somebody who is either a very experienced defensive coordinator or someone who is an experienced defensive coordinator and has also been a head coach. Because then, just like they did with Matt Patricia and Sean Desai, you don't work out, step right up, fella. You're right there. You can even go back to the days of Chip Kelly and Pat Shurmur.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly's offense doesn't work. Pat Shurmur slides right in. He starts running things.
He did.
So the same thing could happen now at the at the head coaching position.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, you've lost the team. Ron Rivera, step on in, son. Let's go.
Yeah, I tend to like Wink Martindale. I tend to like, so I'm going to go there with him.
Okay.
I was running around yesterday. I heard, is it Billy Joe?
Jim Bob Cooter.
Jim Bob Cooter. And then I found out, I think it was Mike Garafolo who put that out yesterday morning. I had heard that yesterday afternoon. I wasn't on social media. I wasn't doing anything like that. So I would not be surprised if he comes back in some capacity. And another name I mentioned, Coach Manuel, who is a safeties coach for the New York Jets. Watch him. He may be a sleeper there. The Eagles we both know how, I mean, it's a drama-filled building. I got a very, very high source who's been with 4 different teams. He says to me, I've been in different buildings in the NFL, and the Eagles are the most panicky team I've ever been with.
Oh God!
And think about this again. What we know of the team, I mean, it's just true. It's true. They tend to panic. They tend to have that. It's a bit of it's a commitment to winning organization. I'm not going to dispute that. They plunge the money, they plunge the resources, they plunge money. I mean, they are a great organization. They do a wealth of good in this area, but they also have a you're walking on eggshells culture. And you've been down there, I've been down there. Mark, that's a stone cold fact. They need to relax a little bit. And that's why I think things were so well run and so, let's just say, calmer under Doug Peterson, because Doug's kind of like a chill guy. That's also something there that as a group, as an organization, they need to take a step back with that. that rubbed some people the wrong way. And it really rubbed a hell of a lot of people the wrong way when they, you're 3/4 into the season, you're asking us to believe in what we're doing. And you're telling us you don't believe who's coaching us with the demotion at the side. That just doesn't make any sense. And obviously it burnt them. And excuse me for taking some. I rarely like anything I write, you know that. But I did like the fact that think about this Eagles season, if you remember the close of the story. Where you have Roby and Kevin Byard running into each other. That was it. Mm-hmm. It was a team that ran into each other. And it was a team that to close 2023 with the biting, cutting epitaph of Troy Aikman. They look like a defeated team coming in, and they are a defeated team, to paraphrase him. So that sums up 2023, and it's got to be up a lot. It's got to be a lot up to Jalen Hurts to get him back.
Well, I will say I have faith in Jalen Hurts to do that.
I do too. Regardless of, again, people pointing a finger at me, I do too. And again, if you read the story, it's in there. They want this guy to succeed. They think this guy can succeed. The only thing that's keeping Jalen Hurts back, as I've said, Jalen Hurts. So, it's there. And it's inside Jalen Hurts. It's a matter of Jalen Hurts showing the faith and confidence in himself to step up and do it. So,
Joe Santoliquito, great stuff as always, my friend. People can check out the story on Bleeding Green Nation and also all your other stories, Bleeding Green Nation as well, Joe. Job well done, my friend, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again. Hopefully, it's not another 5 years, before we talk again.
Well, we've been on before a little bit here and there, but
yes,
my boxing roots and world champion boot tennis.
Absolutely,
world champion boot tennis.
Sounds good. Okay. Joe Santoliquito, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much. The thing that's the most interesting there is the boxing analogy. Aside from, what we have talked about already regarding the story and what Joe just covered there, the interesting thing is the boxing analogy with the Eagles, because I never would have thought of that. I do love boxing. To me, it's the best sport. Don't get me wrong. Corruption and like the way it's organized, but in terms of like two people in a ring, I'm not much of an MMA guy, but it's the same type of philosophy in terms of like, all right, we're not going to see who can throw a ball through a hoop. We're going to see who can kick each other's ass. Last man standing wins. That kind of thing. That's purity to me. That's what it's all about. Everything else is just like, well, we're not going to play. Well, we'll just play basketball to see who's better. It's like, no, who's a better man? Who's a better competitor, right? But the boxing analogy is so great because anyone who's got any novice knowledge of basketball, of boxing, and who's got the most novice level of knowledge when it comes to boxing, you can watch a fighter and be like, oh, wow, yeah, he's good. He's beating these cream puffs, as Joe put it. But you've seen the best. You've seen the champion. And once this guy goes against the champion, we'll see how he really fares. So, like, the record's great, and you are what your record is, which is, a 20-0 fighter, whatever the case may be. But when you get that title shot, are you really on that same level as a champion or someone who's a real contender for a championship? And watching the Eagles really throughout the season, and as I've said many times, with the exception being the Miami Dolphins game, with the exception of that, I never looked at this Eagles team like, wow, they are a Super Bowl contender. They're 10-1. Yeah, that's great. But as I said, the week they moved on from Sean Desai, you can never talk about a team that's 10-3 and be like, well, they're 10-3, they're fine. The team themselves, they weren't satisfied. They knew the deal. They weren't delusional. 10-3, we're a Super Bowl contender. No, you've got a lot of holes to plug. You got a lot of problems to fix. You got a lot of broken areas of this team. The unfortunate thing is that they just had no clue whatsoever how to fix it. And that's one of the most haunting things about it. From the head coach to the ownership, the puppet masters, as Joe described, that's horrifying. So when people talk about whether or not Nick Sirianni is going to be the head coach of this team going into next year and whatever's going to happen going forward, the people that look at it and go, oh, you know what, this is all fine because Nick Sirianni and this ownership group, they're on the same, or I say ownership group because I throw Howie Roseman in there. I should have the front office, right? everyone that puts it together like that, I don't think they really. I think they're delusional to think that all of a sudden Nick Sirianni is just going to have more power. And one of the reasons I'd like to move on from Nick Sirianni is because I'd like to bring in a head coach. Mike, I would love to see Jim Harbaugh be the head coach of this football team. I banged the drum for Jim Harbaugh over the last week. I'd love to see him as the head coach of this football team. An offensive-minded head coach that you know is going to be running the show, a guy that has handled multiple quarterbacks in his career, a guy that was a quarterback in his career. I would love to see him as the head coach of this football team. And when you take into account other people that are available, I would love to see those guys brought in. But I think they're going to do the minimal thing. They're going to keep the head coach, and they're going to hire coordinators that know what they're doing. That's the route I think they're going. Because a coordinator is not a threat to the general manager. A coordinator is not a threat to the owner. You know who's the only person that can be a threat? The head coach. And if you got a head coach that knows his role, that knows his station within the organization, you're not going to move on from that. Oh, and you've been to a Super Bowl with that head coach. That kind of helps as well. So if you just hire competent coordinators, which they failed drastically this season, you'll be good to go. That's the mindset of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the puppet master, if you will, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, whatever the case may be. My thanks once again to Joe Santoliquito. You guys can check out the story that he wrote on Jalen Hurts and why he's not as concerned about Jalen Hurts like he was about Carson Wentz on Bleeding Green Nation. Let's get into our chat check. But first, let me tell you about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen, phlsportsnation.com. How about our friends at Sky Motorcars, skymotorcars.com. Started off with Twiz in the chat check. What's going on? I actually commented, and I always forget that it goes out across all platforms here. 70 points from EMBIID. 70 points. Jason A, what's going on? A, good morning. Sean Gillespie, what's going on, my friend? Mally, smoke baby, got him. How you doing? Will definitely had the assists. I'm with EMBIID. What's going on? King Pooty TV. Sean Gillespie, good morning, everyone. EMBIID is taking over taking our minds off of the damn Eagles. That is the best thing. The absolute best thing about living in a four major sports town. And then we got the Wings game on Saturday. Don't miss it. We got the Union, obviously. We got things going on, baby. We got things going on in this city. EMBIID save some for the playoffs, please. Way to keep our focus towards the Sixers. Trying to fix football playoffs like Swift and the Chiefs. Tired of fixed playoff performances. Mally, 21 days, 17 hours, 38 minutes until spring training. Wow. Thank you. Chiefs going to win again because of Swift. Did you see Andy Reid comment on Jason Kelce? He was asked about Jason Kelce being shirtless. And he said, oh, yeah, no, I saw it. He said, my wife actually took a picture with Jason. And the reporter, good on him, said, oh, did he have his shirt on when he took the picture with Tammy? And Reid goes, nope, no shirt. And then I thought it was beautiful. It was really nice. Andy Reid said, I'm really proud of Jason Kelce, and I'm really proud of him because he's a great father. And that's probably the thing I'm most proud of him for. And I thought that was really nice. That was really nice. I really do have a soft spot for the fatherhood accolades. You know what I'm saying? Jason A, NFL got to pay the favor off for all the publicity. You know what's really crazy about this Taylor Swift thing? And as I've said, I'm on record. I love. I am rooting for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. I hope they raise I hope they get married, and I hope that they raise a beautiful family together. I'm on record. And I will say this. I don't know if you guys have seen this trend on social media. It's where guys say to their wives or girlfriends, they're like, oh, wow, that Taylor Swift girl, she's dating Travis Kelce. She's really going to blow up now. All right. And then the girl goes, what? She's gonna blow up. It's hilarious. Okay, I pulled it on a couple people, and it really, oh man, it puts the quarter in the machine, baby. It's amazing. But I brought it up. I forget what we were doing. I was in the car with my wife, and I said, I told her, I was like, you know what? I'm really rooting for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And she goes, and why is that? And I said, because I love love, babe. Because I love love. I want them to be happy. I want people to be happy together, you know? And then I have never heard my wife go off on any sort of tangent ever. We've been together for 14 years. Good God, she's such a clinger. For 14 years. And we've been married for 5. At 6? This will be 6. This year will be 6. And she goes off on this tangent about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I'm like, that's amazing. And then, you know what she did? She's never asked me this question. She asked me the question yesterday. She goes, did the Chiefs win? And I was like, what? Did the Chiefs win? Yeah, they won. She's like, oh, okay. And I was like, that's okay. All right, now we're talking sports. So that's the mass audience that the NFL is looking for right there. April, what's going on? April, 3 more weeks, best countdown ever. Chiefs not necessarily champs again. Got to beat the Ravens. Hopefully Swift effect doesn't work. John Gillespie, hello again. Swift must dump Kelce before the AFC Championship game. Well, I think her Eras tour, guys. That's the other thing. I know when her Eras tour is, vaguely. I think it's beginning of February. Super Bowl time. Bleeding Green Nation up there with WIP old men bitching. What? Brandon Lee Gouton's not an old man, Mally. KD's reaction. I did see Kevin Durant's reaction to Joel Embiid. He goes, essentially, he dropped 70? Wow. Who would have thought Mark's neckline would brighten up people's day? Pause. Is my neckline plunging? Do I have a plunging neckline today? It is a little plungy. The last time the Eagles quit on their coach was that Detroit game. That Detroit game with Jim Bob Cooter. Suffering Succotash is your name? That is amazing. Jim Bob Cooter says, Mally, every time I hear his name, just waiting for Roscoe P. Coltrane to come fly around the corner. Delco's own Dan Morgan. How about that, Sean Kilrain? Yeah, running the Panthers now. Hello, everyone. 76er, popcorn ready? Twiz, what's going on? Babs, Hurts was bad this year. Stop making excuses for the guy. It's boring. No excuses, but as I have said, Babs, it is horrendous in terms of everything that went wrong. See, yeah, Mally, I called him out on the Boston hat and the Red Sox hat. It's ridiculous. He had it on and he came in and I was like, suffering succotash. All right, sorry. Babs, hold on. Farzi, when the Wentz story came out, nobody in Philadelphia believed it. People believe the Hurts story because it's more obvious. Bottom line, Hurts has to play better. Never mind the outside nonsense. Great point. That's a great point. One thing I will say about I disagree with Joe is that it was already known that Jalen Hurts was a little closed off. Like, I knew he was like football focused, but I would have never thought of prima donna. Like, that's breaking news to me. And I've been around him a little bit. That doesn't come off to me, prima donna. But people in the locker room, a little bit. Plays not coming out fast enough for Jalen to read the defense. More motion in the offense would help. Jim, I concur. They used a smattering of more motion after they got ripped like all hell for for not using enough motion. The Seattle game, they started working a little bit more motion and then kind of went by the wayside. Stephen Ike, what's going on? Jim West, what's going on? Stopgap is used by Howie because he can't draft. Very true. Unfortunately. Yes. Jim, that's the report I was referencing. Clay Harbor reported TJ and White were never offered a contract by Howie. That is, that's who put that out there. North Carolina. What's going on, Mike Fittery? What's going on, Mike? Nice to see you again. We need to draft a linebacker Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State. Getting Trotter Jr. would be a mistake. Another Dean. Damn, son. People automatically assuming A.J. Brown is a source in Joe's story. 76er, they quit. I agree. Yeah, they quit. Simple as that. Oh, I saw this earlier. Wydron, why? Why do you want hands-off owners and be Detroit for 30 years that don't care? I don't. A wise man avoids all extremes. I want an owner that gives a damn, and Jeffrey Lurie has proven that over the years that he gives a damn. The man writes some pretty massive checks, but I don't want somebody that's making decisions for the head coach that he hired. That's not good. Again, a wise man avoids all extremes. Why does it have to be the extreme there? I want someone who cares, but I don't want somebody meddling as much. you can care and also defer to people that have spent their lives in football. I don't think that's a bad thing. Twiz, what's going on? Jason A, hello again. Eagles fan. Why don't we have... Oh, we don't have the personnel to run Wink's defense. No good man corners. He's jobless for a reason. Yeah, because he told his head coach to go bleep himself, basically. Hello? Dynamic Prodigy. What's up, Farzy? What's up, Dynamic Prodigy? Swift is a man. All right. Not going near that one anymore. Sorry about that, folks. All right, there. I thought you were talking about DeAndre Swift. Scoozy. There was a trend the opposite way, too, where women say, wow, Travis Kelce's so great now. Yes, I saw that one, too. I did see that. Little Fart Rat. Nice, great. That's a great name. Farzy, do you think Jim Bob Cooter will be elite? I think he'll be more experienced, put it that way. With Jalen Hurts, yeah, I think he'll be pretty elite. Wait, fast math. It took you 9 years to marry your saintly wife. Come on, Mark. I think we started dating in 2010. 7 years. I proposed in 7. No, I proposed 7. Then we got married. Then we were engaged for a year. So I think that was yeah. She is a saint. She's awesome. Great personality. Let's see here. Hertz is just an introvert. It's possible. A modern elder. Love these names. You guys are fantastic. Craig, I haven't seen Craig. Craig, what's up? Craig North, what's going on? Maybe the people in the locker room who have issues with Hertz are the slackers, not as focused on football as Hertz is, and are misreading his focus as being shut off or cold. Maybe. But I think there are other people in that locker room that also work their ass off that are saying the same thing. That's the only, I think you could be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. But I don't want to just jump to the conclusion. I know of 2 of the people, of the sources. Okay, I can say that. I'm not going to. That's Joe's story. Joe told me in confidence, so I'm not going to just blurt it out. They're people that would raise my eyebrows. They're not people that I would just brush off and be like, well, what they think doesn't matter. They won't be here in a year or 2. Whatever. It's not that. So it does have my concern that they are people that also work hard. So that is a concern. Was Eagles fan just go on a tangent? What happened here? All right, yeah, I'm not gonna go into great detail of anybody else, but Stephen, I just Eagles fan. Is there anybody else you have left to take a poo on? Because you're really throwing people under the bus here. Anyway, thanks everybody in the chat. Each and every one of you, wonderful. Yeah. So tomorrow, the Eagles will hold a press conference with Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, and we'll find out a lot more about what's going down. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. I actually look forward to that press conference. So thank you very much, Stephen Ike. I thought it was fun. Oh, wait. I'm still not married yet, and I've been with my woman for 9 years. Jason, hey, you know what? Do you. You know what sucks is when people are like, when are you going to get married? When the time's right. Back off, bro. How about that? Stephen Ike. Yeah, it was pretty funny. What's going on? Nice get there on the profile pic. If I've never seen that before, Stephen Ike. Nice get. Suffer and Succotash, thank you. Appreciate you. Little fun. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys are great, as per usual. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show. Coming up, we ran real late today. Coming up, John McMullen, Jody McDonald coming your way in about a half hour, less than 25 minutes, 24 minutes now on Birds 365 right here on the Jacob Media Sports Channel. Make sure you guys smash the like button and also subscribe to the Jacob Media as well as the Farzy Show YouTube channel. Also, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.